Welcome back to Noticed Mind. Sometimes, one sincere cry is enough to open a door. There are moments in life when we do not have time to find the perfect words. We cannot calmly explain what hurts. We cannot pretend that everything is under control. A crisis arrives, and suddenly, the heart becomes very small. Fear takes over the mind, and all we can do is call for help. Fire is not always a real flame. Sometimes, fire is the anxiety burning inside our chest. Water is not always a flood. Sometimes, it is grief rising over our heads. And a dangerous road is not always a mountain path. Sometimes, it is a broken relationship, a hospital corridor, a difficult decision, a debt we do not know how to repay, or a future we are afraid to face. In those moments, we do not always need a lecture. First, we need the fear to stop ruling the mind. This is why the teaching of Guanyin is so powerful. It tells us that when beings are trapped in suffering, when they call upon Guanyin with a sincere heart, their cry is heard. But there is something deeper here. Compassion does not always appear in one single form. It responds according to the suffering in front of it. To understand this, imagine a story from long ago. Before dawn, a merchant caravan was traveling along a remote mountain road. The air was cold. The wheels of the carts creaked against the stones. The horses breathed white mist into the darkness. Every traveler carried something precious: silk, medicine, metal, letters from home, and hopes for the next city. But as the road became narrower, the mountains rose higher around them. The wind moved through the dry grass like whispers. Then, suddenly, the caravan stopped. The lead merchant slowly raised his hand. Everyone looked ahead. Several figures were standing in the mountain pass. Their faces were hidden by shadow. No one knew who they were. No one knew what they wanted. But fear spread through the caravan faster than words. Good people, do not let fear scatter your hearts. Let us call upon Guanyin Bodhisattva, the giver of fearlessness. For a moment, everyone was silent. Then one person began to recite, Namo Guanyin Pusa. Another person joined, Namo Guanyin Pusa. Then another and another. Soon, the whole caravan was reciting together, Namo Guanyin Pusa. Namo Guanyin Pusa. The sound was not a performance. It was not magic shouted into the sky. It was a frightened group of human beings, gathering their scattered minds and bringing them back to one clear place. And something began to change. The travelers stopped pushing one another. The horses became quieter. The lead merchant could think again. He looked around carefully. He noticed a small side path, partly hidden behind thorn bushes. He noticed the direction of the wind. He looked again at the figures in the pass. There were fewer of them than they had first appeared. Most importantly, his mind was no longer trapped inside terror. Fear had not necessarily disappeared, but clarity had returned. And when clarity returns, compassion has a place to enter. In the old teaching, the danger is released through the power of Guanyin's name. In our modern understanding, we can also see another meaning. When fear becomes sincere prayer, panic can become clarity. When clarity returns, we can see the next step. And sometimes, that next step is exactly where compassion begins. This is not a small thing. Many people lose themselves, not because their problem is impossible, but because fear multiplies the problem inside the mind. One difficult conversation becomes, "I have lost everything." One frightening medical report becomes, "This is the end." One mistake becomes, "I am worthless." Fear can turn one shadow into 1,000 enemies. Guanyin practice helps us cut through that. Multiplication. The teaching speaks of fire. When someone is caught in great fire and sincerely calls upon Guanyin, the fire cannot consume them in the same way. We do not need to turn this into a crude promise. Fire is real. The human body is fragile, but there is a deeper meaning. When anger burns through us, when anxiety burns through us, when shame burns through us, when grief burns through us, Guanyin practice gives the mind a cool place to stand. The teaching also speaks of great water. When someone is swept away and calls upon Guanyin, they find a place where their feet can touch the ground. In our lives, being swept away does not always mean drowning in water. Sometimes we are swept away by emotion, by memories, by regret, by fear of tomorrow. We stop choosing. We are simply carried. Calling upon Guanyin is the act of touching ground again. The teaching speaks of chains and restraints. Some people are bound by iron, but others are bound by guilt. Some are bound by addiction. Some are bound by anger. And some are bound by a sentence they have repeated for years. I can never change. But when the heart sincerely turns toward compassion, one link begins to loosen, then another, and slowly the heart remembers, I am still capable of beginning again. The teaching also speaks of Guanyin appearing in many forms. If someone needs spiritual guidance, compassion may appear through a teacher. If someone needs protection, it may appear through a person who comes at exactly the right moment. Sometimes, Guanyin may appear through a monk, a doctor, a friend, a stranger, a parent, a child, or even someone we never expected to meet. The point is not simply to imagine miracles. The deeper point is this. Compassion is not narrow. It can take many forms. Sometimes Guanyin responds as a doctor who speaks gently. Sometimes as a stranger who stops to help in the rain. Sometimes as a person who notices that you are struggling and chooses not to walk away. Sometimes as a friend who does not give you advice, but simply stays beside you. And sometimes, compassion appears through something very simple, your next breath, the breath you thought you could not take. This is why the teaching can be understood as one cry, 10,000 responses. The world may not always change according to our wishes. The problem may not disappear immediately. But when the heart sincerely turns toward compassion, a response begins to appear. Sometimes it comes from outside. Sometimes It comes from within. Sometimes it arrives immediately. Sometimes it takes time. But something important has already happened. A closed heart has become an open door. So what can we actually do? When crisis comes, do not wait until your mind becomes perfect. Begin where you are. First, name the fire. Say quietly, fear is here. Anger is here. Grief is here. Do not say, I am fear. Say, fear is here. That small difference creates space between you and the emotion. Second, call the name slowly 3 times. Namo Guanyin Pusa. Let the first recitation be 1 step out of panic. Namo Guanyin Pusa. Let the second bring your heart back to the present. Namo Guanyin Pusa. Let the third remind you that compassion is still possible. Then ask yourself 1 question. What is the compassionate response now? Not the perfect response. Not the dramatic response. Not the response driven by fear. Simply, the compassionate response. Maybe it is calling someone. Maybe it is apologizing. Maybe it is leaving the room before angry words are spoken. Maybe it is taking a moment to breathe. Maybe it is asking for help. Maybe it is going to the hospital. Maybe it is forgiving yourself enough to begin again. This is the living meaning of Guanyin's many forms. Compassion must become practical. Otherwise, it remains only a beautiful image. A beautiful image can inspire us, but compassion that becomes action can change a life. A hand that reaches out, a voice that speaks gently, a person who chooses not to hate, a heart that refuses to give up. These two can become the response of Guanyin. Tonight, if you are standing inside your own fire, your own water, your own chains, or your own dangerous road, do not wait until your mind is perfect. Call from where you are. You do not need beautiful words. You do not need to be fearless. You only need 1 sincere moment in which your heart turns toward compassion. Namo Guanyin Pusa. 1 sincere cry is enough to begin. May every cry hidden inside your heart find the doorway of compassion. May fear become clarity. May suffering become wisdom. May your heart become gentle without becoming weak. And may you not only seek Guanyin's compassion, but become one of Guanyin's responses in someone else's life. This is Noticed Mind. If this story brought a little peace to your heart, please like and subscribe. And if you believe that compassion can answer fear, leave these 4 words in the comments. Fearless compassion responds. Until we meet again, keep your heart gentle, keep your mind clear, and remember, 1 sincere cry can open 1,000 doors. Namo Guanyin Pusa.